in,
I'll,
or
I'll do that in the background.
yeah.
Okay.
I think if we do that, we could give him another minute or so if he's struggling to get in, or
Oh, there he is.
he's coming.
Okay, yeah.
Oh,
I think
yeah, we'll wait. Marvelous.
we're now live on YouTube, Chair. So I'll hand over to you to start the meeting.
Excellent. Thank you very much. We'll just wait for Kev to. It says connecting to audio. Make sure he can hear, and then we'll formally start.
Councillor Wetherell's just joining as well.
Marvelous. Excellent. I'll just wait for them to join. Here we go. Excellent. Welcome, everybody. Right, so we will start with apologies for absence, which I have got from Julie, who's away. Any declarations of interest that aren't published elsewhere from anybody? I'll take silence as no. I think I can see everybody on the screen, so you're welcome to put your hands up if you want to, but I'll keep an eye to make sure if anybody wants to say anything that they can. Excellent. So minutes from the previous meeting. Any comments, queries, or questions on those? I'll take silence as agreement if that's okay. And what I'll do, Jeffrey, next time I'll sign those formally as well for you. Excellent. Right. So we have got chair's announcements, which I don't have any specific chair's announcements, but I would like to say thank you very much to Jeffrey, because this is your last meeting with us. So I'd just like to formally record that our thanks to you for minuting, supporting these meetings over the last, how many years have you done it for?
4. Almost 4.
So yeah, thank you very much.
Thanks, Lisa.
Providing the support, providing the minutes, organising and sorting us out. So yeah, thank you very much for that. We very much appreciate it. So action log. So we are action log on page 11. The status of that action is completed. So I don't think there's anything further to say on that. Excellent. Right, so if we move to the first report, which is the admin report on page 13.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I will just highlight the main points of the report. So firstly, you will see in the report that we have now added a section regarding the administration performance as requested at the previous meeting. That's on items 5.2 and 5.3, and it details the number of feedback surveys that we sent for the period 1st of September to 31st of December 2024. The average rating is between 4.23 and 4.63 out of 5. In regards to the service KPIs, 11 out of 28 KPIs were not met for the 4-month reporting period. In this area, the missing KPIs were due to system workflows not being utilized effectively. What we've done is that we've discussed this with the individuals concerned to avoid reoccurrence. Additionally, the performance was affected by sickness levels that remain higher than desired and an increase in workflow. For the reporting period, as you can see in the appendix, the estimates KPI remains red. The original resource that has been allocated to restoring the performance for this KPI was diverted to train a team leader on the retirement process. This is to ensure that sufficient resources are allocated to the retirement team, where we have seen an increase in the number of cases, especially in members retiring from deferred status. As mentioned, we are currently aiming to clear the backlog as soon as possible. However, our main focus remains on ensuring continuity of income for members. Lastly, in this area, I would like to draw your attention to Appendix B. You will see the new suite of SIPFA KPIs that we are looking to implement from April 25. Regarding the customer journey KPIs, there are 2 points I would like to highlight. So firstly, I would like to confirm that we started to analyze the starters KPI, and we've added a breakdown of the failures in Appendix C. As you can see, 148 failures have been identified for the reporting period. Just to add some context, the failures detailed in Appendix C only represent 7% of the cases, of the total cases that we processed in the reporting period. So that's over the 4-month period. Also, to mitigate the failures, letters will be generated daily going forward. And where data is submitted after the deadline, the employers team will monitor the situation and discuss with the relevant employers if needed. In this case, the failures are related to only 12 out of over 300 employers in the fund. So it's a small percentage. I would like to add that from April, the Livers KPI will be processed by the same team. That's just to ensure consistency in reporting and analysis. And once the reporting and analysis has started, we will talk about the failures and what can be done to improve them. And lastly, just to note, as highlighted in section 5.18, the cases reported as an annual benefit statement breach in October have been reviewed, and it was concluded that no benefit statement was due for the members in questions. Therefore, the fund was 100% compliant. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much. Any questions on that report? No, I see a few shakes of heads. No, excellent. Thank you very much, and thank you for that summary of the report. The report asks us under section 3. It says the pension board is asked to note the contents of the report. Are we happy to note the contents and move on to item 7? I'll take silence as agreement. So thank you.
Yes, I'll speak.
Thanks, Kev. So item 7 is the governance and compliance report, and that starts on page 31 in your pack.
Okay, thank you. So a lot going on in this report to reflect a lot going on in the industry at the moment. I'll just pick up on a few points within the report to give some extra clarity on what we're doing as a fund. So the first subject I just want to touch on really is the pension review, starting at 6.2. Just a brief update on the pension review in this section of the meeting, as it'll also come up again as part of the access update later in the report. But I thought it was important just to kind of in the public session kind of just touch on where we are and what's going on in terms of the review. So as you're probably aware, one of the big things facing the industry at the moment is this review that's been initiated by government. The LGPS Fit for the Future consultation was launched in November, seeking views on the proposed reforms to the structure, investment and governance of the local government pension scheme, and the consultation then closed on the 16th of January. As you'll be aware, the fund submitted a response, and this has been shared with committee and board members, and a really good number of responses were received by government, which really does show the level of interest in this particular area across the industry. So obviously government are looking at those now. On this same topic, just to link into a section 6.34 in the report, Teresa Clay from MHCLG conducted a presentation as part of an LGPS webinar. This set out the high-level proposals and also provides a timeline of events, and the link is in the report. And also, in addition, on this particular topic, linking to the previous item regarding the new pension minister, Torsten Bell will also be attending the PLSA investment conference in March, setting out his priorities for pensions and giving his thoughts on the review as well. So there's just some kind of national context is what's happening in terms of the review. The second topic I just wanted to touch on, a really big thing for us going on at the moment also, is the continuation of the McLeod remedy. Obviously, we've been speaking about this one for quite some time. I just wanted to kind of touch on the pension history forms that's in the report, because effectively we've been doing some work locally on that to ensure that we're compliant with the legislation. So far we have communicated to approximately 20,000 Northamptonshire members who are potentially eligible for the McLeod remedy to be applied. And the purpose of this is to establish if they have any previous public service pension scheme membership that effectively could bring them into scope. For the majority of cases, we've managed to contact members by email where they've been directed to use member self-service, and using that method they can either return an email back to us or reply via member self-service as well. For a small number that we didn't have an email address for, or that have opted out of electronic communications, a corresponding letter was sent to members' home addresses. So the response date for the email was the 31st of December and the 17th of January for anyone that we made postal contact with. Worth noting at this point, in line with what we're hearing across the industry as well, the response rate to date has been really, really low. And of the forms that we have received to date, only a very, very small number have been returned with any relevant previous service on it. Members can, however, come forward at any time with previous membership. So although we're trying to do this as kind of a bit of a bulk project, it's not the be all and end all. And there are various other points that we will ask for information as well, particularly at retirement, when we're due to pay a benefit and things like that. With all these big data projects, there's obviously some data quality issues that always arise. So looking at any kind of bounce backs that we've had off email addresses and sending letters for those ones, and any return to senders, obviously we'll have to look at those and see if we need to conduct any tracing there as well. So the next stage is to verify any LGPS membership. This is a slightly easier process for us because oh, I just disconnected. Sorry, I'm back again. Oh dear. So yeah, this is a slightly easier process for us in terms of we have access to the National Insurance Database, and the agreement has been updated to ensure that we can use it for McLeod remedy purposes. And of course, after we've done that stage, we'll start to look at the rectification of these cases that we know about. Probably just to add in, all sounds on the surface very straightforward, but actually it's quite challenging. Lots of interpreting of guidance coming in, maybe not in a timely manner, that would help in some scenarios. Trying to work out the practical implication, what the software can and can't do. So yeah, quite a challenging project at the moment, but something that we're obviously working through to make sure that we're compliant as we can be. Also linked to McLeod, just really some assurance from a funding perspective that we did receive some really good McLeod training that was delivered by Hymans in January, and that covered some of the multiple aspects of this remedy, including the qualifying criteria, implementation, underpin calculations, and some of those really complex cases that we might come up against as well. So we're definitely trying to keep on top of the subject to make sure we're all fully aware of what's happening. The next section, so dashboards, is, as you'll see on the agenda, lots going on in terms of pension dashboards, ensuring we're obviously compliant in meeting the staging timeline and ultimately the connection date. The report covers the national expectations, but there is a separate report being delivered at this meeting that will go into more of the fund specific information there, so I won't talk any more about that. Just really to draw your attention to the policies update sections. Section 6.57 contains the upcoming reviews. So there's a few in there that have been delayed for various reasons intentionally. The general code of practice, for example, with training and risk, has necessitated that they come later in the year than previously scheduled. I think it's probably fair to say it's been a particularly busy year, and the year ahead is probably not looking much better, but what we will try to do is try and streamline the amounts of reports we're bringing, and obviously the policies and strategies that we bring to you to review as well. And my final point on this report was just around skills and knowledge. No real update particularly, but I just am aware that obviously a few of us attended the governance conference last week. Personally, I found it a really good conference, lots of information, things coming up on the horizon that we know we need to look at in terms of the equalisation of survivors' benefits, things a bit more far afield in terms of the inheritance tax and things like that. But I just wanted to open it up really to see if anybody else had any comments or thoughts. And if not, happy to take any general questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. As Michelle said, any feedback, particularly from the conference, if there's any feedback from that. I attended online. I found it very, very useful, very informative. It worked quite well online as well. So sorry, go ahead, Kev.
I was going to say I attended in person, and there was a section called the Administrative Challenge, which I have to take my hat off to you as a pension board for the work that you've done to try and address the amount of things that they're bringing through very, very short timescales. I mean, we just touched the surface of it in the board, don't we? But there is a huge amount going on as well, isn't there, in the background, with all kinds of different changes to legislation going on. So just wanted to say thanks to you all really for getting on board with it, really, because we're doing all right as a fund, aren't we, at the moment? And, you know, it's credit to you. So
thank you, Kev.
Thank you very much. I think, that's a really, really good point. And I think that's testament to, you see the length of the governance report, the number of different things that you're having to juggle the resources and make sure you've got the skills within the team. And that was certainly one thing that was discussed at the conference about ensuring that pension funds have got succession planning, got those skills in, and it's a challenge. And you see that come through. So on the previous report, with some of the KPIs, when you haven't always got people in place to do it, that's when the KPIs start to slip. So
yeah, certainly, yeah. It was raised a few times, wasn't it? The lack of staff and keeping staff within teams because of the amount of pressure of work, really.
No, very good. Are there any comments on the report or any other questions? No, excellent. So if we were asked to note the report, so if we're happy to note that, and then we can move on to the business plan update on page 45, if everyone's comfortable with that. Excellent, thank you very much. So, right, we're at page 45. Annual business plan update report.
Can everyone hear me okay? I just want to
check that. Yeah, you're slightly quieter than the others, so you might have to speak up slightly, but yeah, we can hear you.
No problem. Okay, thank you. So I'll concentrate as always on the RAG status of the various activities, and you'll see we've got 3 ambers, the rest a sea of green. We are preparing, obviously, the documentation for the end of year update to the March pension committees, and I think we'll be all green bar 2. So the just going through the ambers here, the AVC activity, we've deliberately effectively reprofiled this so it can be consistent with the work we're doing around pension dashboards. So there's a big part in terms of pension dashboards as to how data gets to the dashboard ecosystem, whether the provider sends the AVC data to us and then we send it on, or whether they send it directly. And the control around that process is so critical. It's something we want to actually assess when we look at our AVC providers and the options out there. So we've paused this activity to understand that better and the technical requirements, and then we will effectively feed them in. So that will turn green by end of year once it's been, because the reprofiling's actually already been agreed by the pension committee. You've heard about McLeod. I would say it's amber not because of us, but because of the complexity of the national picture. Yes, the late guidance is one thing. What we are discovering, the more work we do, the more issues unravel in terms of, you know, system processes, etc. Again, this is a nationwide issue, not a local fund issue. Where we are at the moment is sort of in the rectification stage, in that we are running the bulk calculations to understand what retrospective cases we need to rectify. What it's doing is it's identifying some further data quality issues. That means cases are erroring, which means it doesn't produce a calculation in the first place, or the ones where there is a calculation, when we are looking into them, whilst they are reporting that the underpin, i.e. the protection bites, and the member would get an uplift, when we look at the record, we realise there's something incorrect on the record that, when fixed, means it no longer bites. And so we are finding very few cases that actually are biting at the moment. But that data work is going to take a few months, I believe. So we are late to actually physically rectifying cases than we originally planned. But yeah, sort of data issues that are coming up are things like part-time hours not being right, and missing data in connection with age 65 members. So it's a data that's been provided to us effectively. And then finally, the undecided leavers. We've hit our target, I think, already for this year, but I'm keeping it amber because, quite frankly, next year is going to be horrible in terms of the amount of things we're trying to undertake concurrently, and so there's real risks around this project over the medium term. I'll leave it there. I won't expand on that any further, but I think it's absolutely true that the agenda looks packed, and we're identifying, you know, for further things we need to feed in, like Goodwin, which is around retrospective action around survivors' benefits. So yeah, it'll be a very busy time, and of course, alongside what we normally have going on and the extra projects on the admin side, we've of course got the work regarding pooling, which we'll come on and discuss at the end of this as the last agenda item today. So that's really probably where we are. I did just want to flag one thing that's gone incredibly well and I'm really pleased with, which is the website. That's been launched. So, you know, the hard work was done obviously particularly by Corey's team and Sharon, our communications lead. It's a complete rewrite of pretty much every single page. It is now launched. It was a bit slow the first few days. I believe that isn't that well. In fact, it has now been resolved, that issue, and we have ramped up the communication to employers, etc. You know, to say it's live and what it's doing. I just want to check if Corey wants to add anything to that before I finish.
No, a perfect summary there, Mark. It's, yeah, the speed issues are now resolved, and we're pushing out the hard launch of the website to both employers and members. Sharon sent some information out today, actually, to members around that. Just want to say as well, thank you to board members that took part in reviewing that website for us as well. Mark said the hard work of the team. There were members of the board that fed into that process quite well as well, which was really gratefully received.
Thank you. I think Julie, I think it was Julie who was involved in that. So yeah, no, thank you. Are there any questions for Mark or Corey on the report? Okay, it's just acknowledging actually how much that you've got going on at any given time. There's always something in the pipeline as well coming down the line. With McLeod, what's the sort of timeline in terms of how long is it going to take to sort of get to the end of this process? Have you got a feel for that?
Well, to get to the end substantively, because I think you may recall Michelle said that anybody can come along at any point in time, disclose something, and it might bring them into scope, and we would need to do some work. We are hoping to do a good chunk of the the rectification of the cases we know are in scope by August this year. We will, I believe, though, that we will have been going out on quite a scale to other funds, getting information from them, which could potentially bring more people into scope. However, we don't know how. I mean, to be quite clear, we haven't had a single approach from another fund asking us for information about their members to bring them into scope. So we don't believe any funds have potentially gone out yet and asked for this information. So we actually feel we know from discussing with Ed. So I think August, so probably I would say April to August, there'll be a good chunk of rectification work. Concurrent with that, we'll be going out to other funds, and then depending on when we get the responses back, we'll be doing further rectification over the course of this year and probably running into next, I would say. Or this financial year, running into next as well, for those, you know, if the information coming back is quite tardy.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Are we happy to note the report and move on to agenda item 9 on page 71? Yeah. So this is General Code of Practice. What's it called? The expectations of the regulator. It's quite a long title, isn't it?
Yes, thank you. So following from the regulatory compliance report that has been presented to the board in October, we are now moving on to the second stage of the review, looking at the pension regulator's expectations. As you can see in the report, the fund is largely compliant. The table in section 5.2 details our compliance against each module. There are 5 areas of partial compliance and 1 area of non-compliance for us to consider. So for context, we looked at 56 requirements in total. And then in section 5.4, there is a breakdown of the actions that we need to take to achieve full compliance. Out of the 6 areas identified, I will elaborate on a couple of them. So the first action in the table in 5.4 is how we demonstrate members' skills and experience and identify any skills gaps. This point also came about when we reviewed the regulatory compliance, but it came back stronger in the TPR expectations sections. To ensure that this requirement is addressed, we will look into this as part of the training strategy review. The training strategy will be presented to the board in April 25. Also in the table, you will see a couple of other actions that might require additional processes to be incorporated into the workflow. For those actions, I would like to highlight that the default position of the fund is that we will process the cases within the prescribed time periods. However, the code specified that we must have processes in place in case that doesn't happen, and therefore we are now looking to introduce those requirements to ensure compliance. Lastly, I would like to add that as with the previous report, Hymans has completed a review of our analysis, just to ensure that we took into account all relevant points and our approach wasn't too biased or too strict. Also, just to confirm, we are now looking at the best practice requirements, and we will present a report confirming our level of compliance at the next meeting. Together with that report, the board will also receive a consolidated summary of the action points that came out of the full review of the Code of Practice. And during 25-26, probably in autumn, we will also present a progress report against all the actions. I'm happy to take any questions.
Oh, thank you very much for that update. Any questions? Excellent. Right, I think we're happy to note that report and then move on to the external audit report and various documents, which I think Ben is presenting.
So hi, thank you very much,
Chair. Page 85 in your packs.
Yeah, I mean that's where I was probably going to start. So it is quite already quite a few pages, but we thought we wouldn't include the actual annual report and statement of account itself, because that adds over 100 extra pages to the pack. So instead, we've entered a link which is on page 87 of the packs, 5.6 of the report. But I'm happy to go into the accounts in more detail if needed. But the annual report and statement of accounts, they've been signed off now. So this is very much a report to note. The annual report went to the pension committee on the 1st of October 2024 and was signed off, and the statement of accounts was signed off by the audit committee on the 19th of November. So the annual report is actually the responsibility of the pension committee, and the statement of accounts is the responsibility of the audit committee, which is why they're split up for that purpose. Another good thing was that when we went to the audit committee, we could also catch up on 21-22 and 22-23. So in case you're not aware, our accounts go into the back of the local authorities' accounts. So even though ours were completely done and we were happy with where they were, until the local authority accounts are done, that line in the sand isn't drawn. So it could be that we might have to change them. So it was great that the backstop was put in, and there's reference to the backstop in the auditor's report, which I'll come to later on page 120 of their report. But really the good news story is that we've kind of caught up now, or the local authorities caught up, so therefore we've caught up. Again, the accounts themselves were produced in line with SIT for guidance, same team and controls as in previous years, where the accounts have been, well met. I'm a bit biased, but I personally think they're a good set of accounts. I'd usually go through the bank statement or the net asset statement or the income statement, which is the fund account, and can do if needed. But really, I think the headline is that everything was where we expected it to be. So, for instance, we have checks against every line. So benefits have gone up in line with pensioner numbers and inflation, as we'd expect. So with all our checks, contributions have gone up in line with the rates we'd expect to see, and active membership numbers. So there's no surprises in the accounts, and as such, we're happy with them. I think the big headline is that there's been an increase in value of about 370 million. Obviously, we're dealing with big numbers here, so that puts up to 3.6 billion as a fund. So it's been a good return in the year, and that's through the work of, well, basically what's happening in the market really has reflected well on where our investments were and how our asset allocation works. But if it's okay, I'll move on to the auditor's report, which is maybe the more interesting section, being that we've already signed off the accounts. So the auditor's report, so this is Grant Thornton's report. They would normally, or they did actually present it to the pension committee and the audit committee, but unfortunately they're not available today. So I will do my best to guide you through, but just to add the caveat that this is a Grant Thornton report, not an officer report. So that their conclusion is they give a true and fair view, or the accounts, doing that off from their audit, they've discovered that the accounts give a true and fair view to the reader. They're clear of material misstatement, and there's reference to that on page 97, as well as the sort of exec summary at the start. There's no unadjusted differences, so there's reference to that on page 116. Sort of as officers, I think we'd always point out that we'll always see some differences on timing. So there's one in particular that they flagged of 6.6 million. Again, dealing with big numbers here, but that's one we'd always expect to see. Every year there's this movement, and it's to do with assets that take a bit longer to value. So obviously we get to the 1st of April and we start doing our accounts. There'll be some values that we can put straight into our accounts, but there'll be certain assets such as real estate, private equity, infrastructure that take about 100 days after the quarter end. So we do a valuation based on the way SITFA tell us to do the valuations, and then by the time we've completed our accounts draft and published it, and then the auditors come in around sort of July, August time, we've then actually got the actual figures in, so then we can do an adjustment to put the actual figures in. So we're always willing to do that, and that's something we always do each year. But obviously auditor will always reflect it because it's a change from the draft to the final. But we've got no problems with that, and again, we're always happy to adjust that. In fact, we will adjust for non-material items as well, just to have a nice clean audit. The only other things probably there to flag are there's some control issues raised on page 130 and 131. So they've done more of a IT audit this year, which they haven't really looked at in previous years. I think there's enough. They haven't raised them as big risks, so they have a sort of RAG status on how important this risk is. They're low risk, but they're ones that management have already started working on, and actually in some cases we feel we've already answered that one. So don't expect to see it next year as an ongoing risk or management concern. Control issue. Wasn't going to go into too much detail, but happy to take questions on the Grant Thornton report or the accounts if need be.
Is that 6.6 million that you mentioned? Is that an average sort of normal?
Yeah, I mean, it depends on the asset class. As I say, it's usually private equity, infrastructure, and real estate, and it depends if we've moved our asset allocation. So if one of those assets is bigger or lower than the previous year, but generally yes, 6.6. And I can't remember off the top of my head what it is now, but materiality is usually around sort of a percentage of the fund. So I think it's around 13 million this year. So from that point of view, it's a huge number, but it's actually not material in relation to the order. But like I say, we would adjust for any material or non-material just to have a really good set of accounts.
Yeah, like you say, they're big numbers, but I mean, they're quite small numbers in comparison to the total fund, aren't they?
Yeah, it's crazy, isn't it? Really?
Yeah, it is, yeah.
Definitely. Had anybody got any questions from the link into the accounts from page 87? If anyone has a chance to have a look.
I just had a quick question. I don't know if it's really, it's more of it's a performance thing. It's just reported in the account. So I just wonder what the general reason was, because it's quite a big underperformance against benchmark. Benchmark's 12.3 and it was 10.7. It's not really an accounts point. So it's on page 89 and 6.16. So if I remember picking up the accounts, that's probably one of the first things I'd look at, see what the performance was against benchmark. I just wonder why it just seems quite a bit low.
Yeah, it's a fair point. So, I mean, there's obviously a lot of within that. There's a lot of different benchmarks against each asset class. So I think to give you any assurance, we take performance every quarter to the investment subcommittee. And within that, there'll be some asset classes where we're re-looking at those benchmarks to see if they're realistic. Also, so Mercer is our investment consultant who do our performance reporting. And another factor as well is over the year, we've changed our asset allocation, which might have swayed that performance a little bit as well.
If they change the asset allocation, the benchmark should change though.
Benchmark against each asset allocation.
Yeah, if I make a comment, I mean, Councillor Weatherall, you're correct. If you put money into something else strategically, then you reassess the benchmark you're using. Yeah. I think it's fair to say there are a couple of managers that we are looking, indeed, are in the process of making changes. So we are aware of a couple of managers where we are not completely pleased with their performance. So that's just a fact, and some of that process is obviously can be lengthened when there are other factors such as the pooling program, and whether you want to make a change now where you might need to make a further change down the line, because the average transition cost is 36 basis points, for example. So you don't want to do it twice. You want to do it once and make sure that what you're going to is going to be there for the medium term at least. I would also say we consciously will make allocations to diversify, even within things like global equity. So we will deliberately have a portfolio that is an all-weathers portfolio. So, for example, a value allocation. And therefore, if most of the growth in the market has been effectively from 7 stocks, the likes of Amazon and Nvidia, for example, we are deliberately making a choice that we don't want to put all our eggs in those 7 stocks. And therefore there is sometimes deliberately misalignment between benchmark versus what you hold actively. But yeah, I would say there's a couple of managers we're looking to transition from.
Yeah, no, it's comforting that there's like good known reasons for that and explainable ones. But it's just quite a bit. It's quite a big number, isn't it? The 130 basis points or whatever. I can't remember what it is now. Yeah. Thank you for that explanation. That helps. 160.
Thank you. Any other questions on that? I'm just going to go back to the beginning. So we've got the auditor's report. Is there anything else? So we've got the audit findings report. Okay, so you've got the letter of rep and all the various different things and the audit opinions in there. Have you got anything to
say? The other attachments are just the sort of final things that we need to do to get the audit over the line, really. So the main ones though are the accounts that have the annual report that's been signed off, the statement of accounts that's been signed off by the audit committee, so it's coming here to note, and then the audit findings report, which is done by Grant Thornton, which gives us a nice clean audit. And then there's the extra things like the letter of representation that we just need to get over the line, really.
Yeah, and you've got the IT findings report. Is there anything to comment on that?
So that was the 2 issues I raised, sort of page 1, the sort of control issues that management are happy we've put something in place and aren't seen as a high risk area, but something that I wouldn't expect to see next year if we can provide what's required, which I think we can.
Excellent, thank you very much. Right, are we happy to note and move on to item 11, pension dashboards on 147? Yeah, okay, thank you. So, sorry, I'm just moving through the pack so I can get there myself. So who's doing this one?
I think I'll volunteer. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
So this is one of effectively two projects we're running internally, which are being run almost on a full project basis. The other being McLeod, but this one carries obviously quite a lot of regulatory risks if we don't comply, and therefore we are bringing you a update every quarter now as to what we've been progressing. The update, so turning, if you like, to section 6, which goes through the various areas. We procured an integrated service provider, which is our main software provider to connect to the dashboard ecosystem. And we're in the stage now where we're effectively testing. Well, we've called it testing the connection. It's as much as anything, it's testing the console and effectively the interaction we have with that with the dashboard ecosystem at our end. And so that was went live in, if you like, in test in January. We're looking at how information flows through that. We're looking at how the matching criteria works, and within that console we have a number of areas where we can actually put in, exactly how we want it to match. So effectively what this is if we get a request from a member, when there will be a perfect match and the information will automatically go back, when there will be a partial match, which is where we need to kind of intervene before the data gets sent back, or where there's simply no match. We did originally, so one change I think from the paper is we did originally think that we would be bringing a policy on that to the March committees, but it's actually going to be June, because we need more time within that system in order to be able to establish the that matching criteria, and we're literally writing the papers now for the March committee, so there just simply isn't time to do that. So we are just going to push that back one cycle, but there's no issue with us reaching an appropriate conclusion and recommendation. Probably the area I should say there's a lot of data in section 6.7, 6.8. There's a lot of data quality work going on, but what I did just want to mention, building on what I said earlier, is the AVC area. which is 6.9, because this is one of the biggest issues, I think, with the dashboard project at the moment. Again, this is not local, this is national. It's simply the fact that all of the various AVC providers, they're doing things in different ways. And some of them are, which is our preference, going to be sending data to us so we can send onto the system. But one of our suppliers, Standard Life, are not. So they want to send the data directly to the dashboard. And of course, that we kind of need to find a way of managing that to make sure we have appropriate oversight that they're doing it correctly, but we have less control if it's not coming to us first. Having said that, in order for data to come to us, we do need a data view to store it, and that has not yet been developed by our software supplier. So these are all risks, but we're in good company because these risks affect literally everybody using that system, which is most of the funds in the country. So that's really AVCs. Just rolling on, after this period of testing, yes, we'll bring the matching criteria, we'll be getting on with data correction work to make sure that our data is in a fit state to be sent back. And as much as possible, when a request comes in, it automatically matches in and we don't have to intervene. I would flag that the biggest unknown at the moment is the business as usual resource and cost. So we've got an implementation cost in Section 7. It will go up a bit, we believe, because there are elements, for example, I mentioned that development of a data view, for example, that would be classed as implementation. But we haven't really got a handle on when it goes live, what volume of requests will come in and what volume of requests will require work and activity. And beyond that, what volume of extra work will come in because people are, gaining interest in pensions, maybe finding the pension with us for the first time, wanting an estimate beyond, beyond what's on the dashboard system, for example. So we may find that beyond the interaction with the dashboard ecosystem, we actually get more work beyond that as well as a result of this. So a lot of uncertainty around all of that. Having said all that, this is a project we do feel comfortable with. Again, probably because the risks we face are the same risks that everyone else is facing. So I'll pause and see if anyone has any questions on what is a really, really important area, actually.
Yeah. Any questions on? I think as we get regular updates on this, I think we're sure that it's moving in the right direction, and we don't underestimate the amount of work that's going to go into this. And like you say, hopefully it gets people to engage with pensions, because I think that's really the point of it as well. So I'll just check to see any questions from anyone or comments. No, checks heads there. Excellent. Well, thank you very much for that update, Mark. If we're happy to note that report, and we'll move on to the admissions body report, which is on page 153 in your pack.
Be me, if you're happy for me to start.
Yeah, no, yeah, thank you, Corey.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, this is a review or post-scrutiny of a review of the policy that we have that affects the life cycle of employers in the fund, basically dealing with everything from admissions to cessations and everything in between, including bulk transfers in and out of the fund as well. So it's quite a wide-ranging policy in terms of covering employer activities. The policy has been completely rewritten and restructured to match the current way that we write our policies. The majority of the actual policy subject matter in there has remained unchanged in terms of the effect on it, other than one major change that we've made to the policy, but it's not a practical change as such. So with the admission agreements, a lot of the transferee admission bodies, which are the contractors coming in and out of the fund, servicing contracts for other employers, generally come through as pass-through agreements. That means that the pension risk stays with the letting authority and the admitted body just pays the contributions that they've got to pay throughout the life cycle. That's become standard now. We're seeing written into the commercial contracts between the letting authority and the admitted body, and we end up reflecting that in the admission agreements that go forward. Talking to other funds, that's the same picture that they're seeing across the board as well. In fact, the government is looking to make changes to the arrangements for these type of bodies that would mandate this type of risk arrangements where the risk stays with the letting authority. So the policy has been updated to make that our default approach. So all admission agreements that come in, that's how the risk would be profiled to start with, staying with that letting authority, unless either the fund or the letting authority feel that the risk is too high to merit that going forward. So we do still review all the cases, but we start with that approach as opposed to starting with a full admission that requires all of the risk assessments, all of the actuarial work to go with it. So this should streamline the process considerably, take a lot of the decision paralysis that we notice away from the process as well, and obviously takes a lot of risk away. The risk effectively stays unchanged from how it was before the outsourcing took place as far as the fund is concerned from that point of view. I don't have anything else to draw your attention to in the policy. That was the main part. Obviously happy to take any questions that you have.
Excellent. Thank you very much for that summary. Any questions? I think has this been to the committee already?
It has, yes. Sorry, I should have said this has been.
Yeah, it's just denoting. So yes, it's already been approved. So no, I'll take silences. That we are happy to note that. So the next item we are then moving to is the forward agenda plan on page 177. There we go. Oh, Michelle.
Yeah, just a comment on that really. Obviously, you'll see it's just going up to June at the moment. We are in the very final stages of finalising the business plan for next year that will be approved by the committee in March. Once that's been done, obviously, we'll fill this agenda plan out for the rest of the year just so that you can see what's coming up. One thing I do want to touch on this year as well is in regards to the gender pay gap. So I'm hoping to schedule in something on that this year as well for you.
Excellent, thank you. Any comments on that? And obviously, yeah, anybody wants to see anything on the forward plan, then it'd be good to get that feedback and that input as well. So right, I'll take that one as noted. So we are now at the point in the meeting, item 14, where we exclude the press and the public from the meeting, which means I think we just stop live streaming. So if you're happy to do, yeah.
Yeah, if the committee are in agreement.
Yeah, we're happy to do